Hello world, this is a sequel, as it were, to my video that I made a few weeks ago about cooking from a 1974 teen pop annual, namely this one, FAB 208 Annual 1975, as compiled throughout 1974. So I showed you last time the tasty teaser. You had to guess whose favourite recipe each one was. And the last time I cooked the beef curry, which sadly was Gary Jetter's favourite, but we'll skip over that. It was actually quite nice, even though it didn't really taste like curry. In the same vein, today I'm going to make the moussaka. Now, moussaka is a traditional Greek dish, as you know. I do know how to make moussaka. I've made plenty of them in my time. And I will say to you that this does not resemble moussaka. So, well, it does slightly. It's got most of the ingredients of moussaka in it, but it's just not cooked in the same way and is obviously grossly simplified and leaves out one very, very key stage which makes a moussaka. But whatever, we're going to cook it the way it says today, the only exception being that I'm going to swap out a couple of herbs and spices because I want it to be slightly more authentic than theirs. So this moussaka is the favourite of Ray Styles of Mud. I had to think of his name there. Who liked it the way his wife Diane cooked it. I think her name was Diane. Best not. Turn to page 75 for the answers. Yeah, Diane. Right, which is not the way that anybody else makes it, put it that way. So here it is. I'm just going to go in the kitchen and start cooking. I've done a little bit of prepping and yeah, I'll see you there. Okay, to make FAB 208 style moussaka, you will need 1 large onion chopped, a tablespoon of oil, a clove of garlic crushed, 1 pound of minced lamb or beef, I'm using lamb, 8-ounce tin of tomatoes, a tablespoon of tomato puree, salt and pepper to taste, a teaspoon of mixed herbs, 1 tablespoon of chopped parsley, 1 large aubergine sliced, 1.5 ounces of margarine, no way we'll use butter, and 1.5 pounds of potatoes peeled and thinly sliced, and 1 ounce of Parmesan cheese. You may notice that what's missing there is about 100 grams, whatever the imperial equivalent of 100 grams of butter, equivalent of flour, a good 2 pints maybe of milk, and 3 egg yolks missing, because that lovely bechamel top that goes on moussaka is totally missing here. Everything else is in the moussaka that I know and love and that I make, but just for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe just to keep it nice and short and simple, they've missed off that, I think it's absolutely crucial element of moussaka. But never mind, we're cooking it, we're having it the way that they say do it. The only exception being that I've got Italian mixed herbs, which has got sage in it, which is pretty much a must for moussaka. There is no allspice mentioned in here. You must have some ground mixed spice. It's not allspice, it's ground mixed spice, which is your sort of lovely cinnamony style herbs. So you must have some of that as well. So I'll be using that. And yeah, that's the recipe. Let's have a look. We have got potatoes in water just until they're needed, just to keep them from going brown or whatever. That's a huge amount of potatoes there. And this is onion that is gently frying. I'll come back to you when that onion is caramelized, because it does need to be caramelized. In recipes, people don't cook onions enough. That's got a little bit of garlic in there. I'm using garlic puree just because I can. And what they're doing here as well is that they're making all of the sauce in one go, apart from the aubergine. The aubergine gets fried separately. Now that the onions are starting to go golden, this is about the time to put your ground mixed spice in. If you're using it, you should be using it. It's just one ingredient that FAB 208 don't include, but I say you should include. So yeah, don't skimp on your ground mixed spice. Give it a little stirry, and then just fry that away for a minute or two more. Right, this is a true throwback to the 1970s here. How many of you back in the day would have used more frozen mince? And this is pre-cooked, and you can see, look, it's all sort of, all the ground bits are separated here. You know, there's no sort of getting your punnet of mince and then sticking it in the freezer and then having to defrost it. This is nice and convenient, cooked and frozen. It's about £1 cheaper. Okay, now they say to use £1 of mince, and this is 500 grams. Yep, 500 grams, and that will just go straight in. So let's do that. Did I say that this was £1 cheaper than buying a punnet of fresh minced lamb? £5.20 for 500 grams of 25% fat lamb in the punnet. This bag £4.20. So this probably wants about 6-7 minutes cooking away there. I've also put these potatoes onto parboil. This is an extra step. I don't trust my oven to fully cook these potatoes on the top of a moussaka dish with the amount that they are. So they've been just parboiling there for about 5-6 minutes. I'm going to turn them off in a moment. So world, this has now been cooking for maybe 8-9 minutes. I've turned the potatoes off because those were starting to look like they were parboiled enough for me. Not completely cooked, just slightly cooked. So what I'm going to do now, it's just slightly runny. I think that's frozen meat for you. This meat does not want to end up sort of being in a really runny sauce. It just wants to be sort of nice and stodgy and thick so that it holds when you serve it. So not sure whether I'm entirely happy about that. We'll see if it'll evaporate, see if it'll get any better. I'm going to put in a dollop of tomato puree, some Italian style herbs, and a tin of tomatoes. Okay, no extra water. I'll show you in a second. As usual, these kind of recipes give you minutiae quantities and stuff. That was just a good dollop of tomato puree. They say use a tablespoon. If you really want to use a tablespoon, use a tablespoon. Otherwise, do what I do and just eyeball. And that's the tin of tomatoes in there as well. And I'm going to eyeball in roughly 1.5 teaspoons of Italian style herbs. And I've just added a good dollop of ground black pepper in there as well. Freshly ground. Give it a stir without knocking this thing off the hob. And we should be good to go to leave that maybe for about 25 minutes. Let's just see what FAB says. Simmer for 20 to 25 minutes. I'd say that was simmering, wouldn't you? I'm just frying up some slices of aubergine. I'm going to have to do this in small batches. I've had to rearrange my hob because I've just got no room, so I'm just having to sort of make do as best as I can. Make do and then, that's what I always say. So those are probably ready, actually, to come out. At least be flipped over a bit. some salt and pepper in here as well in this oil. Quite a lot of oil in there really. Which is why the recipe that I normally use says bake it, because then you just don't need as much oil. I've got the oven preheated to gas mark 4, which is FAB 208's recommended temperature. Use a chart to work out the electric equivalents for Celsius and Fahrenheit. Now I do have to apologise here slightly. I did buy a nice shiny new pan to make this in, just especially for this video, but I think I've bought one that's far too big and would just make this like a sort of flat as an omelette, which it really doesn't want to be. So this is the best thing I've got. It's one of those, it's well used, it's had all kinds of stuff in it, it's had a good scrub, but you know, it's clean dirt on there, it's clean. It does say to make alternate layers of aubergine and the mince mixture. I don't think even in this smaller size pan that I'm going to be able to do that. What I'm do is I'm going to put a layer of the meat, and then I'm going to add in a layer of aubergines, top it up with another layer of meat, and then top it up with potatoes. And what I will do is use some 1 cal fry light olive oil just to grease this thing with. There's a thin layer of meat. There's actually not all that much left, so I'm starting to worry now as to whether or not I'm even going to get it deep enough for this pan. I'm now having to improvise with a layer of potatoes. I've got to get this to kind of stand up. It's not Moussaka if it doesn't stand up, come on. Right, well that's an extra layer of aubergines, 2 layers of potatoes, and the remainder of the mincemeat mixture. So the next thing that I'm going to do then is just to top it off with potatoes. That is probably well more than the recommended ounce of Parmesan cheese that you are supposed to use. It's just the remainder of a bag of grated Parmesan that you just buy from the supermarket shoved on there. I am very, very tempted to get some grated cheese, just ordinary cheddar, and put it on there, because I think you're going to need something to kind of hold this together. All right, and in fact, that's what I'm going to do. Yep, so I've just put some medium cheddar on there, grated medium cheddar, with some salt, pepper, and a little bit more of that mixed herb, the Italian mixed herb mix that I've got. All right, and that is going in the oven for an hour, and I will come back to you and tell you what it tastes like. Won't you be thrilled? Okay, world. Well, it's just very dark now. I've got the lights all turned on and everything, and I'm looking rather noisy. So I won't keep you too long. This took a lot longer than an hour to cook at gas mark 4 in my oven. My oven is not the best. What I did was whacked it up to about gas mark 7 or 8 or something for about half an hour, and then put it on under the grill for about 5 minutes or so, just to crisp up the potatoes a little bit more, and the cheese as well, because it was just looking very yellow. So here we go. Here's the first taste. It's okay. It doesn't taste bad. Let's try a bit of the potato. That's some of the potato as one of the under layers. As I say, I had to make a layer of meat, layer of aubergines, layer of potatoes, layer of more aubergines, and layer of potatoes, and then top it off with meat, and then top it off with even more potatoes. They wanted you to make a tray of this with 1.5 pounds worth of potatoes just on the top. And I don't think their quantities were quite right. I certainly don't think with a pound of mincemeat you're going to make the kind of quantities that you need to make a tray of this with layers of aubergine, only 1 aubergine, and it's not flavoured enough. It's just nowhere near flavoured enough with the herbs and spices that they suggested. This is not bad.
It's quite nice. I've got the rest of that roasting tray to eat. And you know, I won't feel hard done by. It just, again, a bit like the curry. It's sort of ish, but it isn't quite. And the same with this. It's sort of moussaka, but it isn't quite. All right, and there I will leave you. Because this is actually quite nice. Right? It's just not the moussaka that I'm used to. All right. Okay. All right. I will see you. Remember to like, subscribe, share if you dare. If you can, consider a thanks. If you want me to try more of those recipes from FAB 208, then give me a look down there. If you know any other 70s recipes, particularly from teen culture, I'd be really pleased if anyone would let me know. All right, and I will disappear now because I need to eat. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.